So here's 3 killer tips for you, okay? So get something and write this down. You're gonna like it.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Magic PR Show. Welcome, Eric, to the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Eric, love it, love it. I remember meeting you now in Las Vegas. I remember you getting on camera and doing some name drops on the SEO video show for me. But for this show here, I would love you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. So my name's Eric Schwartzman. I ran promotions at the largest entertainment PR agency in the world. After that, I launched my own PR firm. I founded the first online newsroom management platform, which I sold in 2010. I was the emerging technology instructor at the Public Relations Society of America, and I was the VP of innovation at a $1 billion B2B manufacturing firm. I've written 2 bestsellers on digital marketing with chapters on SEO and PR, and my Udemy course on SEO has 75,000 students, and I currently help companies with PR, content marketing, and SEO.
Love that. So what initially sparked your interest in like digital PR, even in just traditional PR specifically?
I love that question. So I was working at the largest entertainment PR firm in the world, and one of our accounts was the Grammy Awards. And it's pretty cool the way it worked. So if you're a recording artist and you go on stage and you get handed a Grammy and you walk into the wings, one of our staff we had a talent escort on our staff who would greet you. And before you could go and sit down with your award, we would take you into the press room. Now, the press room backstage is exciting. It's about 10,000 square feet, and it's divided into 4 different sections. There's the photo room, where they literally have bleachers, paparazzi, photojournalists, and risers, and they march the recording artist with their Grammy across the risers, and the flash bulbs go off in like 30 seconds. It's like Christmas, man. It's so exciting. And you know that those images that are captured there are going to live forever, and they're going to get seen everywhere. Then we would pull them out of there. We'd take them into the newsroom. And this was kind of set up like a classroom, couple hundred journalists, classroom set up with desks and everything. And we had a podium. And we bring the recording artist up with their trophy to the podium, and they'd bark out a bunch of questions, and they'd answer 2 or 3, and then we'd whisk them off to the electronic room. Now, I'm a few years older than you. The electronic room back then was radio and TV. And they had pool cameras. And again, about 200 journalists, over here, asking a question, asking this sort of question. They'd answer 1 or 2, then they'd leave. And then the last area was the really cool area. This was the one-on-ones. So this last little section of the press room was almost like a mini trade show. But the booths were MTV, VH1, Entertainment Tonight, Access Hollywood, BET, and each one had a little set and talent. And so the big stars would go into there and they do these one-on-one interviews that would be totally exclusive. And then we'd pull them out and put them back into the house. And we'd take them through the press room in maybe 30 minutes to 45 minutes, and they were worldwide afterwards. It was so exciting. And the last year I worked in the press room, there was a 5th stop. It was called the Internet Room. And this is pre-YouTube, this is pre-Twitter, this is pre-Facebook. And what they were going to try to do was do live chat and upload photos in real time. They didn't even have Flickr back then. It was a big deal. And they weren't sure it was going to work, but they had Adam Curry, who was the father of podcasting, and he was doing this thing called Pod Show, which was a new startup, and he was hosting it in there. And the talent escorts would have, the recording artists, and we try to convince people to stop in the internet room, and nobody wanted to stop. They're like, no, we're not doing the internet room. We're too busy. We're just going to do these. Where's MTV? Get us out of here. Well, I saw that, and I thought, man, this internet is going to change everything. Now they're bringing the internet into the press room. And so shortly after that, I quit my job at the agency I was working, and I launched this company called iPressroom. And it was the first service that let a non-technical person build an online press room in their corporate website. And we signed Target, Toyota, American Red Cross, American Heart Association, NVIDIA, the biggest companies in the world all came on board. We built it into a multi-million-dollar business, and I sold the majority interest in 2011. I'm still on the board, but I'm not involved with the day-to-day. And so that was sort of my journey into digital PR. That's how I wound up in digital PR.
Oh, I love that story. Wow, I didn't know how far it went back into like those internet rooms, and that you saw that ahead of anyone else and took advantage of that opportunity there.
It was
Love that.
incredible.
So I'm curious then, like back then, I mean, did you have any, I know that was probably a light bulb moment right there, but was there any like mentors that you worked with or any that inspired you?
Well, so here's the cool thing. So I went to this benefit with my dad, and we got tickets for like, for the auction or something, and they read off the prizes of who won things. And my dad won an iPod. Remember iPods before they had
Yeah. Oh
iPhone?
yeah, yeah. Before the
He
MP3s,
won an
right? They were small.
iPod. Yeah. And he was like, I don't want this thing. So he gave it to me. And I started listening to all these podcasts. And I sort of got connected with all these guys who were early podcasters in the world of PR. There was these guys, Shell Holtz and Neville Hobson. They do a show called For Immediate Release. It's still going. It's one of the best PR podcasts you can get. I would highly recommend it. And then there was another one I listened to with Christopher S. Penn and John Wall called Marketing Over Coffee. And that's still going. It's an amazing podcast. And then there was another one by Steve Rubell and Joe Jaffe called Across the Sound. That's not going anymore. But I started to listen to them, and then I met these guys at conferences, and we sort of mentored each other because we were all pioneers trying to figure out how all this stuff worked. Nothing did work. You had to get special cables and figure out how to make everything work to be able to record a podcast. There was no Zoom or anything like that. So these guys became my early mentors.
Love that. So, I mean, how did you develop your skill sets and knowledge to be in PR? I mean, was it a lot of communication classes or, like public speaking? How'd you please let us know on skills.
Well, I mean, I was fortunate enough to work at a huge agency. And of course, being at the agency, I was director level. I rose up through the ranks to director of promotions, but there was a VP of promotions who taught me a ton. There were VPs of PR, VPs of corporate PR, movie PR, personality PR, and just working really in the trenches on all these major shows. I worked on the Academy Awards. I worked on the Grammy Awards. I worked on the Emmy Awards. I worked on the Olympics. I mean, I was in the press room as sort of a media gatekeeper in these tremendous world-class media awards, media events. And so it was really through the experience of dealing with media that I learned.
Love that. Okay, so can you kind of take us of your journey of like the different positions you had to your growth to where you're at now, especially having you wrote books and you have some like new white papers that came out. I mean, like kind of take us your journey from like your finding that one moment of that internet room to now.
So, I'm at the agency. I'm in the internet room. I see this whole thing. I launched this company, iPress Room. I build that up. It's about a 10-year, period to build that up to a multi-million-dollar company and sell it. Then I become an independent consultant. I'm still on the board. I consult for U.S. Department of State. I consult to the U.S. Department of Defense. I consult for the Singapore Ministry of Health. I mean, big organizations, Boeing, Johnson & Johnson. These massive organizations where I would come in and I'd sort of be the corporate guy who could sort of tell you how to integrate digital into your stack because it was new back then and people didn't really know about it. And then when people started to learn about it, that's when I went and joined a $1 billion industrial manufacturing firm as their VP of innovation. I was responsible for modernizing their stacks, for building their CRMs, for integrating all their technology. That was a nice ride. I did that for a while. And then I went back to consulting, which is what I do now. I help mostly small businesses who don't have the resources or a deep enough bench to be able to get this stuff done, figure out how to do it, often, on a small budget.
What a journey. What a journey. So I'm curious now, like, can you take us back to one of the most memorable campaigns that you've ran?
Yeah. So I got some really good campaigns. I sort of came up with 3 that were kind of interesting that I wanted to share with you. This is a project that I did for a company called American Hat Makers. It's an e-commerce company that sells hats. They sell every kind of hat out there. And I created for them an original news media outlet, a separate website called The Hat Walk. Not the catwalk, but The Hat Walk. And what The Hat Walk is it's a website with stories about the hottest hats that celebrities are wearing on the red carpets at premieres, at world-class events. And so what I did is I hired a staff of journalists that were freelance, and I did deals with different red carpet photographers. I would secure photos. This one you can see is of Jennifer Lopez on the red carpet at the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Costume Gala, which is an annual event. And that night, when we got the photos, we wrote the story. The next morning, we were up with this article on how J-Lo makes women's leather cowboy hats the next it piece. And this is an original story with all sorts of cool photos about her outfit. And you can see on the left there, we ranked 2 of the top 4 rankings, up with Yahoo and The Mirror. 2 of those results are ours. And this was actually ranking number 1 for J-Lo cowboy hats, within a couple weeks. But what we did was, in the story, you can see sort of the highlighted keyword down there is women's cowboy hats. And we linked that over in the story back to the product landing page for women's cowboy hats on the Shopify site. And so we pulled in all the link juice to the article on the blog, and then we transferred that link authority over to the website. And you can see with the little screenshot, we're ranking number 1 for women's cowboy hats and for women's cowboy hats, singular and plural, within a couple of weeks. And we did this for every category: sun hats, hunting hats, ski hats, sun hats, men hats, fedora hats. I mean, every hat under the sun. And it was really a great project, and it was really successful. So I wanted to share it with you guys. I thought you would find it interesting. Then I have another one I want to show you that's, I think, similarly unique, that I think will be interesting to people watching this podcast. So let me just bring it up for you here. So this is a project that I did for a wine maker called Halleck Vineyard. And, most people, when they do a blog on their website, they just talk about themselves all the times. Oh, this is our product, this is that. They brag. And no one cares about you. They care about what's happening in the space. So what I did was I looked up the most searched Pinot Noirs. And the most searched Pinot Noirs were Bella Gloss, La Crema, and Meiomi. Not Halleck Vineyard. They're a small little winery. And we recorded a video comparing our wines to their wines. And here you can see most searched Pinot Noirs: Meiomi versus Bella Gloss versus La Crema versus Halleck Vineyard. And this took off. Then we linked from here over to the website, which was the blog post I was showing you here. And then in the blog, we put in all these ads for the different products that we sell. So this is one of our Pinot Noirs that we sell. Here we have an embed of the video. We also do wine tastings. Those are in the sidebar. And you can see this is the corporate site for the winery, but we actually branded the blog Sonoma County Wine Tasting Blog, because we don't want it to be the Halleck Vineyard blog. Otherwise, it looks like a house organ. We want it to be impartial, or at least have the appearance of impartiality. We even did a separate header here. Like here, I can show you, if I go to the About, the name comes up. But if I go back to the blog, we just have the logo, but not the name, because we really want it to be about this media outlet. And of course, if it's a media outlet like this, people find it, they come in, they link through it, they buy, they see the ads, and they perceive it as a media outlet. So that was the second thing I wanted to show you. And people wouldn't usually think, oh, don't talk about your competitors on your blog. Well, if people are searching for your competitors and not you, talk about your competitors on your blog, they'll find you. It's a great strategy.
I love that.
And then the last thing I would say, a project I was really proud of, is I did a project for AARP, which is the Association for the Advancement of Retired People. And they were stumping some policy changes around Medicare Part D. And when they're stumping, they go to Capitol Hill and they do this speech, which then becomes a testimony that's entered into the congressional record. And that congressional record is subscribed to by reporters. Okay, so this is a media relations tip here. So their objective to me was, hey, we're doing this testimony on Medicare Part D. Everyone in the Beltway knows this already. We want to get outside of Washington. We want to get to local healthcare reporters. What do we have to do to get to local healthcare reporters? So I did the research. Local healthcare reporters don't write about healthcare. Local healthcare reporters write about hospitals. So I just went through the testimony, optimized it for the word hospital. They read it, entered it into the congressional testimony, and we got noticed by all the local reporters and got covered everywhere. So, I mean, really combining PR and SEO is so much fun because you're not just pulling technical levers, you're also creating original content that's interesting and unique. So I think the two together are really a home run if you can do them both well.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I love that. I mean, those are some great campaigns there. So if you were to give away 3 tips of trying to launch one of those campaigns, what would those 3 tips be?
So here's 3 killer tips for you, okay? So get something and write this down. You're going to like this. So the most important thing if you want to get covered in the news is you have to know the reporter that covers that news beat. If you go to an editor and say, hey, is there someone on your staff that covers this? It's going to get lost. The editor gets hundreds of emails a day. They don't have time to be traffic cops. So you've got to do the research and figure out who to go to. So how do you do that? It's real easy. You go to Google News and you search your competitor or the segment leader or a keyword indicative of your industry. And you'll get all the recent news stories that have that keyword in it. Then you go to each story and you see who the author is and you write down their name. Okay? Then I want you to download a browser extension, a Chrome browser extension called Contact Out, and install it in Chrome. Then I want you to go to LinkedIn. I want you to bring up the profile of that reporter, click on the little browser extension. You'll get their phone number and their email. You can actually make the list right there in Contact Out and just build a list. There's all these expensive services that you can subscribe to for media contact information. This is better. This is a better way to go. Wow. So this is an almost free way to build a media list for any beat that's current and up to date. If you want to really get in now, so that's important. Now you've got to know what makes news. If you want to know what makes news so that you can fashion your pitch in a way that it's likely to get covered, I want you to download SEO Fight Club episode 220, which is me talking all about what makes news. It's just about that, how to fashion a pitch. So those are 2 things, and then I have a third for you too. So in the old days, when we were negotiating stories with the media, like we'd go to the media and we'd say, hey, I got this celebrity, she's got this record, it's coming out. I can get you one-on-one with her exclusive, but I need a major story above the fold on page 1. Can you deliver? And they would say, I don't know, I got to ask my editor, blah, 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 blah. And if they could, you would negotiate the photo above the fold. That was the deal. You negotiate the placement. Yeah. Not online. Online, you're going to negotiate something else. Online, you're going to negotiate the citation. Don't call it a link, because if you call it a link, they're going to shut down on you. But you can negotiate a citation. So you say, I'm going to give you the exclusive. I'm going to get you in there. It's going to make it easy for you to cover. It's going to be a great story. I got photos for you. You're going to get a scoop. But I need a citation in the first paragraph. And I need my guy's name, and I need it to link to this page. Can you deliver? So now you're negotiating the SEO component as part of the PR instead of the photo, because you're going to get the photo anyways. So those are 3 actionable tips that you can put to work right away.
Love it, man. Those are some great tips. If someone wants to get into the industry, like become like a career in digital PR, I mean, what would your advice be to them?
So there's no defined track for learning digital PR. You can learn SEO, you can learn PR, you can learn marketing. Digital PR is really a hybrid of all 3. So the best way really to learn digital PR is to learn PR, learn SEO, and learn marketing. And I don't say digital marketing anymore because all marketing is digital.
Love that. Okay, so I know you kind of touched upon this, which was a great tip on advising on how to build our professional network of journalists. I mean, is there anything else, or is that like?
Oh yeah, I got a great one for you here. So here's how I built my network. So when we were building iPressroom, like year 2 or year 3, one of the guys says, "Hey, we got a new feature in iPressroom. It's called podcasting." Podcasting? What's that? Oh, it's this really cool feature where you can distribute an MP3 file on iTunes. It's awesome. I say, well, if we're going to demo it, how are we going to demo it? We need a podcast. Oh, yeah, we need a podcast. I go, cool. We're going to this trade show. It was a PR trade show. And at PR trade shows, they usually, for the sessions, bring in journalists, and someone interviews them about what they like to cover. Okay, so what I did was I called all the journalists who were booked to be at the show, and I said, hey, when you're done with your session, come down by the booth. I'd like to interview you about what you're talking about at the show. And I recorded all, this is 2005, and I recorded interviews with the Wall Street Journal, someone from the New York Times. I mean, these amazing 20 interviews. And I just put them online and forgot about them. And I looked back 6 months later and we had tens of thousands of downloads. So I started a show called On the Record Online, which I did over 400 shows of. They're still online if you want to download them. And I interviewed pretty much every journalist under the sun about what they like to cover and how they make news. And that's how I built my network. Something else I did, which was kind of cool. I mentioned For Immediate Release, the podcast, which is going now, which you should definitely listen to if you want to get into digital PR. One thing I did with my original shows of On the Record Online is I edited down 60-minute like segments of each show where I'd say, hey, this is Eric Schwartzman reporting from Los Angeles. I spoke to so-and-so. He said this, that, and the other. I'd put in a few sound bites, and then I'd say, if you want to hear the whole thing, download my podcast at www.ericschwartzman.com. And they would start including these as segments in For Immediate Release. And so I was able to build my audience in tandem with their audience at the same time. Other things you can do, you can join the Public Relations Society of America. You can join the Society of Professional Journalists. Those are great networking opportunities. I definitely would say follow, interact with journalists on platforms like Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. Share their content. They notice. They need audience. So if you can bring audience their way, you're somebody they want. If you can SEO their article with off-page tactics, you're a hero, and they're going to take your call.
Wow, dropping so many knowledge bombs on the podcast. I love it. Okay, so as we wrap things up here, if with digital PR, how do you see it in the future? How do you see trends and it going?
Yeah, so used strategically, generative AI can accelerate content development and improve content quality significantly. So it's already changing the game, generative AI, in terms of content development. That's the one we know about. Let's talk about the one we don't know about. The big trend on my radar is spatial computing, which Apple is introducing with the Apple Vision Pro in February. It is a virtual reality headset from Apple. So if you've tried Oculus or some of these other ones that are clunky and hard to use, now we've got Apple releasing one. Well, we know that Apple creates a different product. They've got Disney as a partner. They've got Discovery as a partner. They're advertising on the NFL. So I think just as the internet turned press kits into online newsrooms and social networks replaced newspapers and magazines as the places we go for the latest news and information, I think spatial computing will turn live press tours into virtual reality events. And it's even possible that we can open those events up to consumer audiences as well.
Wow, I can see that happening. I love
That's it, man. That is the next opportunity. So I would say if you can scrape together $4,000, buy an Apple Vision Pro now. Get on the bandwagon now and learn it while it's young and while it's evolving, so that when it does become big, because it'll take a while, they're too expensive to become mainstream. It's going to take a few years to populate and figure it out. But if you get on the train now, then you'll be one of the visionaries 2-3 years from now. So I would say that's the big opportunity, spatial computing. I think it replaces keyboards. I think it replaces laptops. I think it replaces monitors. I might even replace our home, because if you can live in a palatial estate in a 1-bedroom, 1-bath with the headset on, that's not too bad. And the world's getting crowded, so it might be a good solution.
Love it. Okay, before we go, do you have any? You mentioned one podcast earlier, and out of the book recommendations or podcasts, and then of course, how can people?
I do have some recommendations for you. So I wrote a book called The Digital Pivot: Secrets of Online Marketing. Now, there's a lot of great books on SEO. There's good books on PR. There's good books on content marketing. But I didn't see one book that was a good overview book of everything. And not with a bunch of technical jargon that didn't make sense. Something that would be understandable to a general business reader. So it's called The Digital Pivot: Secrets of Online Marketing. You can get it on Amazon. The foreword is by New York Times best-selling author David Pogue. And it's also available as an audiobook on Audible if you like to listen. And it's, of course, if you're a member of of the the what is the Amazon Kindle thing? It's free.
Yeah. 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 Love
There's
that.
that.
Love that. Okay.
One more thing. Let me plug one more thing. I also wrote a guide to negative SEO.
Yeah.
And that's available for free at ericschwartzman.com/negative SEO report. And this is a guide that reveals how SEOs demote their competitors' sites and business owners unknowingly tank their own websites. So if you want to protect yourself and figure out what it is you're doing wrong that could be hurting you and what other people could be doing that could be hurting you, download the Negative SEO Guide. And then I have a new podcast called the Earned Media Guide, which is sort of about digital PR. It's sort of about at the nexus of public relations and digital marketing.
And where can we find that podcast? Is it on iTunes?
All my resources
Spotify?
are available on my website at ericschwartzman.com.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Eric, for coming on board. You dropped so many knowledge bombs. It was great having you, and I can't wait to meet you again once at another conference.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.